Welcome back to PR After Hours. I'm your host, Alex Greenwood, bringing you your weekly cocktail of PR and marketing tips that will help you and your business. Well, one of the things that I do the most in my job is something that is often called reputation management. Reputation management is pretty much what it sounds like. You are managing the public's perception of what you or your brand or your company, your organization is. And a lot of people I speak with, a lot of business owners, small business people, they don't think about that a whole lot. They think, well, if we offer a good service, if we're a good restaurant, for example, or if we make good widgets of whatever it is, that speaks for ourselves. And to a large degree, it does. The thing that a lot of places don't take into account, though, for example, a restaurant is all it takes is to have one bad meal served. And when I say one bad meal, that can be a meal that, due to perhaps a breakdown in hand washing leads to somebody getting ill, or it could simply be a meal that somebody didn't like and maybe they went to the manager and said, I'm not paying for this, and then maybe the manager didn't handle it real well, and then it blows up on social media, and then what you had was a normal Thursday afternoon lunch rush turns into a full-blown PR and social media crisis that goes throughout the weekend or gets worse and gets on TV or in the papers. I tell my clients and people who speak to me about these things, there's a few basic things you can do in a crisis. And I'd like to offer some of those tips here on PR After Hours on Anchor FM. That's anchor.fm. I have to keep putting the dot in there. And I would like to run through a few of these tips for you. And all of these tips can be found on my website at alexgpr.com. You'll learn more about not only from our blog, but you can learn about our crisis communication planning services as well. But, I always tell people prepare for the worst with the best in crisis communication services, and that involves a plan. Well, we can talk a little bit more about plans, but there are some things that you should do during a PR crisis, whatever it may be. And we're kind of talking about if this is something that your brand has done rightly or wrongly, you're being accused of something, or you're in the hot seat, that kind of thing. Not necessarily talking about a natural disaster crisis, because there's so many variables we could go through on crisis. We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's just assume it's for your company or your brand. First thing is to be prepared. As I mentioned already, have a strategy in place. Get in front of the controversy, whether it's with an apology, an explanation, or an announcement. Pretty simple stuff. Show emotion. This is huge. When your reputation takes a hit, it may seem like the right approach to focus on being, as business-like as possible, to be like Spock on Star Trek, be very calm. However, you need to show the public that there are people with real emotions in charge of the situation. So put a human face on your response and be relatable. That's a word I love to use, relatable. If people can look at you on social media or through their TV screen or hear you on the radio and they're like, I feel for that guy or that gal. I see what's going on there. That looks like they're getting hosed by this situation. That's huge. But if you're just a really cool customer, well, that can be off-putting to certain people. They want warmth. They want humanity. Another thing that's really, I can't stress enough is embrace transparency. Now is not the time when you're in a crisis to circle the wagons, at least not explicitly. Demonstrate that you've committed to being honest and open to feedback during this challenging time. Have a plan. I keep saying this, I keep harping on this. There's a whole section of my website at alexgpr.com about our various our various communications, crisis communications planning strategy sessions. We can sit there and work with you on the plan. We'll talk about that at the end of this pod. But don't wait for a catastrophe to figure out how you'll react to it. Have a response team ready to go. Sketch the bare bones of a plan for your reaction on the various things that could go wrong for your line of work, for your industry, for your particular business. If you're a restaurant, have a plan in place to handle if you get a bad health department inspection, or if you have somebody complaining on social media about a meal, or maybe there was violence in the parking lot, or so many things. Have those scenarios sketched out and have people ready to go who have kind of game planned and understand the general reaction you might have to certain annexes that could go wrong for you. Okay, turn the tables. Maintaining perspective is critical during a crisis. Consider the impact on your customers when crafting your response. So if you are that restaurant that's under fire for, let's say, a bad meal, let's just say some people got sick. Being defensive and going, hey, look, we've been in business 20 years and never made anybody sick, so get off our back. That kind of attitude right there, that's not going to work. They don't care. What you could say is, we are deeply troubled that after 20 years in business without so much as a problem from anybody, this happened. You can understand how mortified we are by the situation and how it is our utmost priority to work with the authorities and healthcare professionals and our beloved customers to make sure this never happens again. Boom, right? Not going to make it go away, but it's all about the way you respond. Coach your spokespersons. This is part of your planning process. Before sending your representative into the firestorm, make sure they fully understand the game plan. Provide pertinent information to them. They can use bullet points. And here's a little tip too. Sometimes businesses and clients of mine, they instantly defer to the CEO to be the spokesperson, even if they have a PR person on staff. Sometimes that's not a good idea, particularly if the CEO is not comfortable on their feet in a spokesperson role. And that's nothing against the CEO. CEOs are great at running companies generally, right? But sometimes that personality does not translate well. See previous tips about warmth and all that. CEOs are often very cool customers, and even the CEOs that are kind of celebrities, though, have their own baggage. So I think it's important to identify a spokesperson who is professional, got a PR, communication, or journalism background, somebody who doesn't get flustered easily, and also, frankly, they can take the hit. They can be the face of the situation. If you're the owner of a company and something bad happens, maybe you don't want your face to be identified and thought of with that bad thing. Maybe your PR person, whose job it is to do that, that's where they get the old phrase, flack catcher. They call PR people flacks. I don't really care for that, but a flack catcher, they'll catch that flack for you. So keep that in mind. Coach your spokespersons and select the right people. Listen to advice. Are you listening to me now? Listen to advice. Ultimately, the buck stops with you, and you should consider listening to professional opinions within your team and definitely your PR agency. Own up to your mistakes. Above all else, it's important to take responsibility for what happened. Ignoring or downplaying the situation may only make matters worse. I counsel people to be as transparent as possible. I understand, though, if it's involving a legal issue where they could get sued, the legal team is going to go butt heads with the PR team, but you need to find a way to be as transparent as possible without exposing yourself to a massive lawsuit. There's ways to do this. There's ways to discuss this. One of the most important things, we get back to this planning process, is, one of the charges that can be made to a lot of companies is like, well, you didn't even bother to plan on something happening, you don't have a plan, like if this restaurant got robbed at gunpoint or there was an active shooter, you don't even have a plan on the shelf for dealing with that, and you didn't drill for that or prepare for that. Those are things like that. If you've got a plan in place, that can mitigate a lot of the damage. But the main thing is, owning up to mistakes and saying, we planned for so many things and we tried to make sure that we were as prepared as possible. This one didn't obviously go the right way, and we're sorry. If you can do that, it often can end a lot of nastiness that could go on for a long time. So a few things just to remember. Don't do these things. Don't shut down communication. Don't shut down all your social media. Don't say no comment. Don't put a hand on the camera lens. Don't slam a door in the face of a reporter. I can give you a lot of examples of my past 25 or so years in this business where I have told clients to welcome the media in, explain as carefully and as warmly and as efficiently as possible the situation, and move on. That often has a way of deflating a lot of the news tension that the news organizations are trying to get going. Sometimes if you let the air out of the balloon, so to speak, they no longer want to try to pop it, right? So think about that. It goes without saying, but I'll say it, don't get angry. Even if you're 100% in the right, even if you're just getting screwed over, it never helps to become indignant or lash out or at anybody, especially on social media where that's forever, on video. Oh, don't do it. If you don't trust your emotions, one, you shouldn't be the spokesperson and you shouldn't be anywhere near a camera or a microphone or the internet if you're not good with that. But if you are the spokesperson in particular, you cannot operate that way. You cannot be the former CEO, by the way, like of BP after the Deepwater Horizon and go, I feel bad for everybody. They all want their lives back. Well, I want my life back too, said the guy who just wanted to go sail on his yacht. It's not a good look. Don't wait too long to react. The longer you go without responding, in most cases, the more time you give others to form inaccurate impressions of what happened. If there is a void people will fill it, particularly on social media. So if it's clear that something bad happened at your restaurant, we're back to the restaurant again, people are sick, it's getting out, and you've just said nothing for like 2 days, you're going to let the story get away from you. Now, sometimes I've counseled restaurant owners who got maybe somebody mad on Facebook, for example, about a meal that didn't go right. I said, let's hide and watch. We've tried to respond to this already. Maybe you just say one thing, which is, we have tried to speak with you about this in person, and we don't think going online here to talk about it is constructive. And then you leave it at that. And then what was happening, this restaurant we were working with, we did that, and then we let it be for a few hours, and all of the restaurant's customers who loved the restaurant were like, "This is not right." They were kind of in a way shouting down the person who was making the complaint, not because they made a complaint necessarily, but because they were irrational and did not want to actually speak to the management about making it right. They just wanted to get on social media and damage the reputation of the restaurant. So there's ways to do, don't wait too long, but also maybe don't jump the gun and just immediately jump on, especially when emotions are running high. Don't point fingers, that's another one. Trying to deflect responsibility may make your business appear cowardly. Even if you're confident you've done nothing wrong, avoid throwing anyone under the bus. Here's a great example of that. I already mentioned the Deepwater Horizon. BP right away pointed fingers at the contractors who were working on that particular part that blew up on the wellhead. I don't have all the information in front of me, but in general, their first response was, right out of the bag, was, "This wasn't us. We didn't do it. It wasn't our fault. It was somebody we were working with, but it wasn't our fault." And man, one, it wasn't true, and two, it looked so cowardly. It looked so bad. A lot of these tips I gleaned from newsexposure.com, which shared an infographic that is on our blog, Top Tips for Handling a PR Crisis at AlexGPR. It's real simple to find. Just go to alexgpr.com, go to the blog section, and in the search box, put Top Tips for Handling a PR Crisis, and you can see the graphic there. About to the planning really quickly before I let you go here, and I can tell that you're ready to go because your drink's about empty. Crisis communication planning is huge. You'll buy insurance for cars. You'll have commercial liability insurance, most businesses at least. A lot of businesses and professionals have errors and omissions insurance, right? Well, why don't you have a crisis communication plan on the shelf that you can go to every quarter, make sure that it's up to date, that all the scenarios have been practiced and drilled upon at least once a quarter? Why not have that? Well, a lot of the reason is because you're busy and have other things to do, or you don't have anybody with the expertise to do it. Well, you're in luck. At AGPR, we can help you with this. We have a process where we can do one of several things. One thing we can do is if you do have a plan in place, hooray, congrats, good job. We can look at it and kind of poke some holes in it. That's not a negative thing. That's a good thing. You want us to look at your plan and evaluate it and make sure you didn't miss anything, or that maybe you're so focused on your brand and your sector of business that you're not thinking about the way things would be perceived by the public or certain other stakeholders. So we can help you with that. That's a pretty quick review. You give us your plan, we meet, we discuss it a little bit, we review it, we come back to you with recommended changes. Okay, well, what if you don't have a plan? Well, we can assist you in creating a plan. Often organizations have a grasp on the basics, but they need a framework and boots on the ground consulting to make the plan goals workable and effective. So we can provide a consultant who attends your meetings, offers templated solutions, and acts as neutral analyst on the content, direction, and overall feasibility of the plan. Or there's the big Megillah. We can create the plan. This is for the enterprise that has not created a viable crisis communications plan at all, and they don't have the team really in place internally to do it. So we assign a consultant to your business to manage the process of creating a crisis communications team and plan. We manage and work through every step of the process, write the plan in collaboration with the client, conduct training, and direct rollout of the plan to all staff. We have other services, of course, and we can help you in the midst of a crisis. And if you want to learn more information about that, alexgpr.com. Just click on at the top, Crisis Communications. There's more details. And, of course, you can reach me anytime. If you want to talk to me about some of the tips I offered here, you have some questions, or you have a comment, get a hold of me. You can find me on Twitter at @A_Greenwood, or you can just email me. Just go to the website, alexgpr.com, hit the contact button, and send me an email, and make sure you let me know you heard it on the podcast. Remember, the best time to plan for a crisis is before it happens. I hope you enjoyed your little cocktail of tips, and you'll please tune in next week for another edition of PR After Hours. I'm Alex Greenwood. Thanks for joining me here on Anchor.fm.